Okay, so Prajan said he will follow through with the questions coming from yesterday. Can you? He's translating, right? Okay. So first, the first question is relating to the state of bhavanka and state of sleepiness. What is the difference between sleepiness and bhavanka? That's the first part of the question, and Ajahn answered that yesterday already. And the second part is, how should we relate to the state of bhavanka? Should we cut away and reject the state of bhavanka altogether? Or should we engage with the state of bhavanka? So the answer is, Prajan emphasized that we have to not cut away bhavanka. We have to engage with the state of bhavanka with awareness. And this is a very important point in our practice. We are not to reject the state of bhavanka, but we want to engage or connect with the state of bhavanka with a state of being aware, full awareness. Luang Por Vriyang said there's actually two types of bhavanka. Bhavanka that is natural and bhavanka that is made up. So the state of natural bhavanka we have to always engage with. It happens when we are born, when we die, when we go to sleep, and when we wake up. The mind always engage with the state of bhavanka during that time. Another style of bhavanka that we have created is the state when we put to sleep by injection before we go to operation. That's also another style of bhavanka. And this is a style of bhavanka that Luang Por said we should not do too often because it would damage our nervous system internally. So what is emphasized is that we are not to cut away our relationship to bhavanka, but we want to create the state of awareness when we get into this bhavanka. And this is very important. Prajan talked about there's two styles of practice that we are actually engaging into in our practice. The first part is we engage with the mind that is not going into bhavanka. And the second is we engage with the mind that is going into bhavanka. The mind that is not going into bhavanka is when we practice developing our concentration and going through the jhanas, the first to the fourth jhana. And when we get to the fourth jhana, that is the time when we get to contact with the point of, in Thai it's used the word Jut Palang Amnat. It means the point of authority or the point of power. And that is the first aspect of the practice that we are engaging with. The second aspect is we engaging with the state of bhavanka with enough awareness. So when we get into the state of bhavanka with awareness, that is the point where we would encounter the Atisamanagaya. Atisamanagaya พระอาจารย์ท่านใช้คำว่าภาษาอังกฤษท่านใช้คำว่าอะไรครับ Okay, it's very similar to a subtle body.
ถ้าอย่างศรีลังกามีศัพท์เดียวกันที่ใช้เรียกว่ามโนกายคือกายของใจ
Okay.
ครับครับ
So Atisamanagaya, Prajan actually emphasized the meaning of Atisamanagaya also. Atisamanagaya, it means the body, the form body that cannot be seen with the naked eye. And it's actually pointing to the body of beings who are not in this physical realm, like beings in hell or in the heaven realm. And that's what we are referring to. So Atisamanagaya that Prajan Luang Por Vriyang talk about quite often is this body that cannot be seen but is within our physical body. And this is the type of body that we want to get in touch with. And to get in touch with this type of body or Gaya, you have to go through the state of bhavanka. If you reject the state of bhavanka, you would not be able to get into contact with this state of Atisamanagaya. So Prajan emphasized that Atisamanagaya, you need to engage with the state of bhavanka. And bhavanka, this is why when we are given the instruction, we are told to kind of endure the state of bhavanka. When we are trying to fall asleep, try to wake yourself up. Don't reject this state, but try to go through this state with awareness. And there would be a time where you can wake up within this state, and that is the time when you get in touch with this Atisamanagaya. Prajan said Luang Por would talk about our relationship to Atisamanagaya further when Luang Por teach Vipassana. Because in order to get a full understanding or full effect of realizing the state of Vipassana, you need to get in touch with Atisamanagaya in order for the mind at that subtle level to have the state of full nibbita or kind of total rejection or total boredom of this state of clinging. So Atisamanagaya is actually important, a very important state that we need to get in touch with, and that can only go through the state of Bhavanka. So our practice, we want to develop the quality of the mind, accumulate the energy of the mind, so that the mind is able to be awake and see when the state of Bhavanka arises, when the mind steps into the state of Bhavanka, and when the mind is awake in the state of Bhavanka. And this can come from the energy of the mind that has been accumulated enough, from the quality of the mind that has been accumulated enough. If you go into the state of Bhavanka without enough energy of the mind, you would feel like you are going into a dark room, blurry. The mind will become dull and kind of fall into sleepiness when you get in touch with the state of Bhavanka. But when the mind has enough energy, that is when you can wake up in the state of Bhavanka, and that is where you're going to get in touch with the Atisamanagaya. So eventually Prajan emphasized not to cut away the state of Bhavanka, but engage with it with energy. The second question is about one of our monk asked about the experiences that he had when he was practicing a long time ago. He was trying to meditate and doing his meditation, but around the place that he's meditating, there was a lot of sound, like a festival sound, very loud around him, and he was trying to cut away from that sound. It was agitating him. And so eventually, through that meditation, he found that suddenly all the sound disappeared. And he could not hear the sound. All the sound was cut away, and he was able to be in the state of stillness. And when up to the point when his teacher said, now come out of meditation, very lightly. And then he came out of meditation, and he found that it was about 1 hour already. So his question is, this kind of experience of all the sound being cut off for like 1 hour, is this a state of Nirodha, or what kind of state is this, and what will we call it? So that is the question. Prajan's answer is, actually this is not something that Luang Por very young has taught, but he would like to share something that he read in the Tripitaka. So in the Tripitaka, talks about the obstacles, or we say the thorn. You know the thorn? When the branch has thorn, like spikes. The thorn of deeper jhanas has different levels. So the sound is the obstacle of the first jhana. And the thoughts, vitaka and vichara, is the obstacle of the second jhana. Piti and sukha, like rapture and happiness, is the obstacle of the third jhana. And eventually, the breath is the obstacle to the fourth jhana. So the obstacle here means you have to let go of these obstacles in order to get into the deeper states of the jhana. So Prajan pointed that for eventually, if you use the breath, eventually when you get to the fourth jhana, to get into the fourth jhana, the breath eventually becomes the obstacle of the mind going into the fourth jhana. So eventually the mind will have to let go of the breath as well. And this is the same as when the mind have to let go of the mental note or the butto in the mind. So it's the same state that before you get into the quality of the fourth jhana, the mind would eventually let go of the breath, or here that we're doing, it would let go of the mental recitation itself in order to get into the fourth jhana. And Prajan said this state is actually, he wouldn't call this state a state of Nirodha yet. You have to observe whether but he would say that this would probably be the state where the sense faculty of the ear faculty is actually cut away, but it is not the state of Nirodha yet. So when you are in that kind of samadhi, in that state of samadhi, you might find that the sound is cut away, but then you have to observe further of other obstacles, whether they are still within the mind. For example, you have to observe whether the happiness or sukha or piti is still within the mind, or whether other thoughts is still within the mind if you're not hearing the sound. And so that would be the point where you can see which state of jhana you're in. So in conclusion, if the sound is disappear, look at other states of the mind to see what kind of jhana you're in as well. But this is not, he wouldn't say that this is Nirodha yet. Thank you. So the next question is about the location point. The location where you put your awareness. The question is, when you walk and when you sit, does the location point have to be the same location? Can we change the location, one for the sitting and one for the walking? Because it's more difficult to place your attention on certain location point when you sit and when you walk. Prajan's answer is, actually this is a good sign of a practitioner where you investigate and look at what is working and what is not working within your practice. So this is a good sign of your intention of practice. But the answer to this question is, you have to choose one location point and keep at that location point both in the walking and in the sitting meditation. And this is actually very important. Prajan talked about that when you do the walking meditation, there's actually 5 results that can happen as a positive result. The first is when you do walking meditation, the first is it helps your health to be healthy. The second benefit is it helps the digestion of your food to be easy. The third benefit is you are able to walk in a longer distance. The fourth benefit is the clarity of your skin would develop. And the fifth quality is that the concentration that comes from walking meditation can last longer and can stay more stable. And for this fifth benefit is actually what we are aiming for. The concentration that comes from walking meditation is more sustainable and can last longer. And so when you do this practice, this is why you both have to do the walking meditation and also the sitting meditation. It's usually more difficult to place your attention on the location point when the body is moving a lot. And it's easier to place your location point when the body is still, like when you are doing your sitting meditation. But if you're able to place your attention on the location point when you're walking, that would make the mind more stable when you go to do your sitting meditation. So it's actually very important to only pick one location point and keep at that location point both when you do your walking and when you are sitting for meditation. When you do your walking meditation, it's actually a stage of preparation to prepare the mind to really be able to do the sitting meditation deeper and longer. So Prajan advice is to remember the first day when he showed you the microphone, and he taught us that when you choose your location point, your full attention should be on the location point, like you're looking at the microphone that Prajan was holding up. But you also should be aware of the surrounding of whatever's happening behind that actual location point, but it should be secondary to the main focus that you're trying to look at. So when you do your walking, your attention should be on your location point, but your attention should also notice the body that is also moving and walking, but that should be in the background. Your main location should be at the location point, and location point should be the same when you walk and when you sit. So the second part of the question for this particular monk is he asked Prajan's opinion about what does he think about when these days that you can see that there are monks who are ordained and who are focusing on just learning the chanting and learning the ceremony and skip the meditation aspect, the meditation part of Buddhism, and only engage with going into people's houses, doing chanting for like นะครับโพยปลิว and only doing chanting and ceremony instead. So Prajan's answer is Prajan said he doesn't look down on these different aspects of how people engage with the Buddha Sasana. It's not that people who only do chanting and not do meditation is doing something wrong. Everybody have their own timing, their own ability to engage with the teaching in a different quality. Some people are ready to only take the precepts. Some people are ready to engage with doing chanting and ceremony. And some people are ready to engage with the Buddha Sasana in terms of doing the meditation. People have different levels of readiness to engage differently. So Prajan said everything supports the Buddha Sasana in its own right, but when you get into more deeper understanding or deeper faith, then you can do certain things in a deeper way. So Prajan said even only doing chanting, that also arouses faith in the people who are listening and also engaging with that ceremony. So it has this positive quality as well. And Prajan raised up the story about a certain cave that is close to here. It's called Tham Tap Tao. It's in the Chai Prakan area, which is close to here. And there's a story that in the past, there were a group of bats who were in that cave, and there were monks who went into that cave and they were chanting the Abhidhamma. The bats during that time were listening to the Abhidhamma chanting and were engaging in the chanting to the point where they forgot to hold on to the cave and then fell down and died from listening to that Abhidhamma chanting. And 500 bats at that time eventually were reborn and became Venerable Shariputra's disciples, and eventually had the chance to listen to the Abhidhamma in their further life and eventually attain arahatship. And then before they passed away, they recollect their past lives, and they found that in the past lives they were actually bats listening to the chanting, and that arouses their faith. And so this is kind of the story that shows that even just hearing the chanting without any practice can also bring benefit in the future and can support the Buddha Sasana in that way. So Prajan said, eventually people have different timing for their readiness to engage with the teachings of the Buddha, and he does not look down on people who are only engaging in keeping the precepts or engaging only in doing the chanting and ceremony, but the deepest aspect is to engage in the meditation. And we can also look at ourselves that before we accumulate enough energy or faith in the practice, we were afraid to go into deep forest, or we were afraid to go into meditate in the channel ground. But once we accumulate more faith and more energy in the mind, then we are able to do more difficult things. So in the same manner, people would engage in Buddhism in a deeper aspects once they are ready.
ผมฝากคำถามไว้ก่อนครับมีอยู่เรื่องหนึ่งขอถวายอย่างนี้ครับเป็นคำสอนสมเด็จเจ้าคุณหลวงพ่อครับเวลาหลวงพ่อเจอพวกเราทุกครั้งที่มีการประชุมสงฆ์หลวงพ่อจะเน้นเรื่องนี้มากหลวงพ่อบอกว่าเมื่อเธอบวชมาแล้วเธอไม่ทำสมาธิภาวนาเมื่อเธอบวชมาแล้วเธอไม่ทำสมาธิภาวนาเธอเหมือนกับยามเฝ้าศาสนาเมื่อเธอออกไปบิณฑบาตเพียงไปรับค่าจ้างเฝ้าศาสนาในฐานะยามเมื่อเธอรับกิจนิมนต์ไปฉันในที่โยมเขามีศรัทธาน้อมถวายเธอก็เพียงไปรับค่าจ้างเฝ้าศาสนาเท่านั้นแต่ถ้าเมื่อใดที่เธอทำสมาธิภาวนาเธอจะเป็นเจ้าของศาสนาเมื่อเธอออกไปบิณฑบาตหรือรับกิจนิมนต์เธอไปรับทายธรรมคือที่โยมเขาบูชานั่นเองครับหลวงพ่อสอนพวกเราอย่างนี้เสมอเจอหน้าทุกครั้งหลวงพ่อจะสอนพวกเราอย่างนี้เสมอฉะนั้นกราบเรียนครูบาอาจารย์ครับเมื่อกี้ผมไม่ได้ว่าพระรับกิจนิมนต์หรือไม่รับกิจนิมนต์เป็นอย่างไรแต่ผมเสนอในส่วนของคำสอนสมเด็จเจ้าคุณหลวงพ่อที่ท่านเน้นย้ำพวกเราเสมอว่าอย่าเป็นยามเฝ้าศาสนาครับขอนิมนต์ท่านอาจารย์มหายานครับ
Phra Ajahn would like to add that Luang Por very young used to tell us a simile when we are gathered as a monk assembly like this. He said, Luang Por would say that when you ordain into the Buddha Shasana and you do not meditate, it is like you are acting as if you are the security guard of the Shasana. And when you go into alms round, Bintabat or any ceremony and you receive anything from the lay people, it's like you're only receiving payment for becoming the security guard, taking care of the Buddha Shasana only. But whenever you do meditation and engage with the practice, it's like you are the owner or the actual owner of the Shasana. So this is the simile that Luang Por very young used to tell us often when we gather as an assembly, and this go along with the story, the question that was raised.
คำถามฝากจากพระอินเดียของเมื่อวานนะครับผมทำอานาปานสติมาก่อนแล้วดูอาการกายที่ปรากฏเมื่อกำหนดที่หน้าผากและบริกรรมพุทโธจิตมักกลับไปดูที่ลมและอาการของกายอยู่เสมอไม่ค่อยรู้สึกที่หน้าผากเลยผมควรทำอย่างไรจริงๆการทำอานาปานสติยังเป็นส่วนอนุโลมอยู่นะครับในการปฏิบัติของหลวงพ่อแต่ว่าคำว่าอนุโลมคือหมายถึงว่าบางท่านบอกว่าไม่สะดวกพุทโธดูอานาปานสติได้ไหมหลวงพ่อก็บอกว่ายังถือว่าได้อยู่นะครับในคำสอนของหลวงพ่อแต่ทีนี้ถ้าเป็นผมถ้าขอคำแนะนำอย่างนี้ผมขอกลับเรียนอย่างนี้ครับเมื่อไรที่เรากลับไปทำกรรมฐานเดิมผมเรียกว่าเผลอครับผมเรียกว่าอาการเผลอเราจึงต้องพยายามเพื่อทำสมาธิในปัจจุบันเพื่อไม่ให้เผลอไปกำหนดอย่างอื่นหรือมีอย่างอื่นมาแทรกเจือปนครับฉะนั้นเมื่อเราเผลอเมื่อไหร่สิ่งนี้จะปรากฏแต่ว่ามันจะมีอีกแบบหนึ่งที่เคยเจอก็คือว่าเมื่อทำสมาธิแล้วกำหนดที่หน้าผากมันจะรู้สองที่พร้อมกันคือเคยทำอานาปานสติมาก่อนก็จะรู้ลมหายใจไปด้วยรู้หน้าผากไปด้วยเหมือนเดิมนะครับคือว่าให้ดูฐานวางจิตให้ชัดแล้วอาการที่เราจะรู้ในอารมณ์ที่สองจะเริ่มผ่อนลงแล้วหายไปเหมือนกันครับเมื่อเราทำอานาปานสติหรือว่าทำกรรมฐานอย่างอื่นแล้วพอมาทำพุทโธภาษาบ้านเราเรียกว่ามันตีกันมันก็จะเมื่อเราเผลอก็จะกลับไปทำที่เดิมหรือแม้แต่ทำพุทโธแล้วไปทำอย่างอื่นพอไปทำสมาธิด้วยวิธีอื่นพอเผลอทีไรก็กลับมาพุทโธทุกทีฉะนั้นเราทำสมาธิแม้นึกพุทโธเราก็จะไม่เผลอเพราะอยู่ในความรู้สึกตัวในสติสัมปชัญญะในปัจจุบันขณะครับถ้าเมื่อไรที่เราไปรู้สึกอย่างอื่นถือว่าเราขาดสติกับสัมปชัญญะเราไปโดยความที่ไม่ตั้งใจอย่างเนี้ยเราจำเป็นต้องเพิ่มสติและสัมปชัญญะคือความรู้สึกตัวให้มากขึ้นครับผมขอบพระคุณครับ
These questions come from our Indian Bhante, and the question is, I used to do anapanasati and observe the body posture before coming here. And when I practiced here, I put my attention on the forehead and recite Bhutto. But a lot of the time, my mind naturally go back to watching the breath and watching the body, like I did before. So what should I do? So Prajan's answer is, actually when you, in Luang Por Viriyang's method, usually when people say that they're not familiar with the recitation and they want to do Anapanasati, is it okay? Usually Luang Por would say it's acceptable. It's not advised, but it's acceptable if you are shifting between Anapanasati and mental recitation. It can be used both ways, but you have to make a decision to choose one. Prajan said, but in his opinion, whenever the mind is not with the object of meditation that you intend to stay with, that is the state of getting lost. So if you intend to focus your attention on the mental recitation of Bhutto, and the mind naturally goes back to another object, which is the breath or the body, that is the state of the mind getting lost from its object of meditation. So his Prajan's advice is you have to maintain your awareness in the state of, in the present moment, and arouse your sati and sampachanya so that you can be with the object that you intend to stay with. If the mind go back to the breath or to the body like it used to, that is a state of getting lost. So that is the first angle. The second angle is sometimes when you do mental recitation and you place your attention on your location point, and when you do that, you can also sense the breath or sense the body walking because you're used to it. So it's like you're seeing both objects at the same time. Prajan said this is acceptable, and what his advice is to focus more on your location point, like watching the microphone, and have your other object of meditation like the breath or the body to be secondary, to be not the main focus. And if you keep focusing on your location point and the mental recitation, eventually the breath and the body would slowly subside, would lose its energy in itself. So in conclusion, whenever the mind is lost from the object that you intend to stay with, that is a state of getting lost. So that is the time where you should arouse your sati and sampachanya.
คำถามจากกลุ่มคณะครูบาอาจารย์จากอินเดียนะครับมีอยู่3คำถามที่2นะครับเวลานั่งสมาธิแล้วเจ็บขาสามารถเปลี่ยนท่าได้หรือไม่แล้วเจ็บมากๆสามารถนั่งเก้าอี้ได้หรือไม่ตอบแล้วเมื่อวานครับสามารถเปลี่ยนได้แล้วนั่งเก้าอี้ได้นะครับผมกำหนดที่หน้าผากแล้วเกิดอาการร้อนขึ้นประมาณ3นาทีแล้วหายไปหมายความว่าอย่างไรครับหมายความว่าให้ความสนใจมากไปครับไปกำหนดมากไปแล้วก็เลยไปรู้ว่ามันร้อนจริงๆถอนความตั้งใจออกมาหน่อยนึงคือเพียงสมมติว่าเพียงรับรู้ว่าจิตมันรู้สึกที่ตรงนี้ความรู้สึกที่วางตรงนี้ก็พอไม่ต้องไปดูว่ามันร้อนมันเย็นมันหนาวหรือว่าอะไรเราไม่จำเป็นต้องไปดูขนาดนั้นครับเพียงรู้ที่หน้าผากก็พอครับไม่ให้รู้ว่าร้อนหรือเย็นครับ
So a few more questions from our Indian Bante. One question is about the pain when you sit, and that Prajan answered yesterday. Another question is sometimes when I focus on my forehead, I can sense a feeling of heat appearing in my forehead for about 3 minutes and then it disappears. What does this mean? Prajan's answer is that means you are focusing too much on your location point. It's too much. You should release or relax your attention on that location point a little bit more. You just need to place the mind there just enough to know that your attention is there. We don't intend to focus too much on your location point. You don't need to force it until the point where you feel it's hot or cold. You just place your attention there just to know that your attention is at that location point. That is enough. The next question is, there's a word, the deterioration of the mind. the downfall of the mind. So when the downfall of the mind or deterioration of the mind happens, what should we do? And what were the methods that our great masters in the past did when their mind deteriorate? So P'ra Ajahnt's answer is actually in Luang Por Viriyang's teaching, Luang Por Viriyang doesn't talk about the deterioration of the mind. So if you think about it, when the mind having defilements or akusala, when the mind is having kusala quality and then suddenly it turns into akusala quality, does that mean it's the deterioration of the mind? Actually, it's just a different state of emotion that appear and disappear in the mind. But in Luang Por Viriyang's teaching, Luang Por does talk about the deterioration of jhana and the deterioration of samadhi. This is being talked about in Luang Por Viriyang's teaching, which would come later. So P'ra Ajahnt would not comment on that yet, and he would advise you to wait for that teaching to come. But Luang Por Viriyang would talk about the deterioration of samadhi and jhana actually comes from an inconsistency in the practice of meditation. And that would usually lead to the mind getting more involved with akusala qualities, and like the moha in the mind would arise in the mind more easily. So Luang Por would emphasize that the deterioration of the jhana and samadhi, to prevent that, you have to keep your practice consistent, and that is the main thing that you need to focus on. So this question is about when he was doing walking meditation, at the time of turning around, when he turned around, he would see the vision of a picture of a monk as a picture in the mind, appearing and kind of floating in front of his vision when he was standing and closing his eyes when he was standing at the walking meditation. So what should he do, and what is his state? P'ra Ajahnt's answer is, this is the quality of bhavanka, that he would call this quality a bhavanka. This is the state where the awareness or mindfulness of the mind is more subtle, but it still have this drifting quality towards it. And so this is like getting in touch with the state of bhavanka slightly. But what we need to do when we have visions like this is the same. It's just to notice that it's there and let it go. Not to follow, not to think about, not to try to sustain it or do anything with it. We just learn to observe that it's there and just let it go. And P'ra Ajahnt's advice is, if this happens during walking meditation, you should arouse your awareness or your mindfulness and bring it to a more gross level, not too subtle, but to bring the mind up to the state of more gross level. And P'ra Ajahnt emphasized is that you need to use the gross level of the mind to work with the gross level of defilements and visions. So when these things happen, bring the mind back to a more gross level and be aware at that state during your walking meditation.
เหลือเวลาอยู่ประมาณ10 นาทีดังนั้นผมขอโอกาสขอคำถาม2 คำถามอาจารย์ก่อนครับ
มีคำถามเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะครับอาจารย์หลวงพี่จรนะครับหมายเลข98นะครับท่านถามว่าทำไมเราถึงทำการภาวนาแค่30 นาทีสำหรับการนั่งนะครับแล้วก็ถามว่าเวลาที่เราปฏิบัติไปเนี่ยเราเห็นแสงสีม่วงปรากฏขึ้นเนี่ยเราควรจะต้องทำยังไงครับอันนี้2 คำถามครับ so the question is why only practice for หลวงพี่จร number 98 ask why only practice 30 minutes for sitting meditation, and the second part is and when you see a purple color what to do. ครับ So the answer to why we don't do the meditation longer than 30 minutes, why only do 30 minutes, the reason is Phra Ajahn share the story of Luang Por Viriyang. Luang Por Viriyang used to tell this that before he used to practice for like 9 hours walking and 9 hours and sitting. And this actually the story when Luang Pu Gongma, his first teacher, said he was going to take Luang Por Viriyang to meet Luang Pu Man. Luang Por Viriyang wanted to really practice hard before going to meet Luang Pu Man to make sure that that he can be worthy of meeting him. So he was practice like 9 hours a day, sitting and walking. And the first time he met Luang Pu Man, the first thing Luang Pu Man actually taught him is that when you do meditation, you have to do it up to the right level, to just about the right amount. If you don't do it to the right amount, you would not succeed. So this is the first teaching that actually got Luang Por Viriyang to really have faith in Luang Pu Man. So it's not about the length of time that you need to work or do the meditation, but it's about the quality and just the right amount of meditation that is needed. So when you do 30 minutes, it's just about the right amount that people can endure. And when we practice together as a group, it's actually the amount of time that the new practitioners are able to endure and can sustain their focus in a good session. So this is why we do it for 30 minutes when we are together as a group. But when you do it by yourself, you can do it for longer than 30 minutes. That's also fine. It's up to your intention. But when we do it together, the reason that Luang Por Viriyang choose 30 minutes is because if you get lost, you would only get lost for 30 minutes. Because if you do a longer session and you get lost throughout the whole session, that is actually draining your mental energy. So if you set the timing for only 30 minutes, then if you tend to get lost, you would at least not get lost for too long. And actually, Phra Ajahn also added that if you observe when you do the practice for 30 minutes, how long during that 30 minutes was the time where your mind is really accumulated and has a really strong foundation and energy. Actually, it might not be that long. If you can do it for a long time, then that's good. But usually, it's not that it's very long that you can sustain your concentration. So during short time is okay. But what he would emphasize is to do it short times, but do it continuously. You can do it many times, do it often, but you don't have to force it to be a very, very long session. So during 30 minutes, it's actually just about the right amount for newcomers and older people who practice can do it together as a group. So the second part of the question is that where you said that you see purple light and what to do with it. So Phra Ajah's answer is that experience of seeing is actually happening, but it is not something that you should put your attention on at the moment. It's not something that you should focus on at the moment. His advice is that you should let it go for now and bring your attention back to focusing on the location point and your recitation for now. It's not the timing yet.
ขอคำถามต่อไปครับอาจารย์มี2คำถามครับผมขอบคุณครับ
คำถามที่2นะครับจากท่านผมอ่านชื่อไม่ออกขออภัยนะโอเคครับคำถามที่2คือคำถามว่าเวลาที่เราเดินจงกรมเนี่ยนะครับอะไรคือเหตุผลที่เราจะต้องเริ่มด้วยขาขวาก่อนและทำไมเราถึงจะต้องเลี้ยวทางด้านขวาเท่านั้นด้วยครับ
ขอบคุณครับเป็นคำถามที่ดีนะครับคือทำไมต้องเริ่มจากขาขวาแล้วก็ต้องวนขวาไม่ใช่แค่ท่านสงสัยผมก็เคยสงสัย
So the second question here in English is in walking meditation what is the reason that we have to start from the right leg and turn only on the right side Okay Phra Ajah's answer is actually this is a very good question and Phra Ajah also had this curiosity and asked Luang Por Viriyang also why do we have to turn only the right side and start on the right leg. The reason that Luang Por, the answer is Luang Por gave you this instruction so that you don't have to hesitate, so that you let go of thinking, oh, should I turn left or should I turn right? Should I start with this leg or that leg? So he gave you instructions so that you don't have to think about it, so that it cuts off your agitated mind or your curiosity mind, and just so that the mind can become a state of normality and just able to place your mind on the location point and the mental recitation without hesitation. That's the main reason. And also to walk holding your hands together, not swinging your arms, because swinging your arms would eventually lead to the agitation of the mind more easily. So this is why. So all the instructions is so that you don't hesitate. You only come to the point where you're able to be firm with your location point and your mental recitation. So actually we are running out of time, but I would like to address these two questions because it's actually quite urgent before we leave. So the first question is, when we recite Putto and put my mind on the location point, and then I ask the question, who is the knower or what is consciousness? Where should I place that question? Or should I just ask and just let it go? So Phra Ajah's answer is, you place your attention on the location point and the recitation on your location point. But for when you ask the question, what is consciousness or who is the knower? He wants you to attentively ask the question, intentionally ask the question clearly. But once you ask, then allow the question to just let go. You don't have to place a location for this question, which is different from your mental recitation. For mental recitation, you place it at your location point. But for this question, you just intentionally ask and just let it go. You don't need to place it on any location. That is the first question. The second question is, when I do the meditation, after saying the prayers, then I fall asleep right away. And then I wake up again when I hear the bell. So what should I do? I fall asleep all the time. So Phra Ajahn said, if you are falling asleep all the time and you are not able to be awake at all, then this is actually normal. Because you have changed your schedule and we've been working very hard, so it's okay and it's actually very normal. Sometimes I ask the monks what you got from listening to Luang Por Vriyang's teaching, and some people say that they can only hear Sawaddi, like goodbye at the end. That's all, and that's okay. But to fix this problem, we don't fix this problem in the sitting session, but we actually want to fix it in the walking meditation. So when you do the walking meditation, please arouse your awareness or your ability to be awake very clearly when you walk. Don't let your mind become dull or become sleepy when you walk. And try to observe the difference between when the mind is going to like blurry bhavanka state and when the mind is feeling sleepy because lack of sleep. And these two states is actually different. When you feel you are getting dull or nauseous from relating to the bhavanka state, try to, if you see yourself drifting into that state, pause yourself, stand, or wake yourself up, arouse your awareness to be awakened. And that could help you when you go to do the sitting. But if you do the walking meditation and you're just kind of engaging with this sleepiness and not fighting it, you kind of sleepwalk throughout the whole session, that is the mind where it's already diluted by this dullness. So when you go and do your sitting meditation, eventually you will just fall asleep very easily. So Ajah's advice to fix the sleepiness in the sitting is to arouse your awareness when you do your walking and observe the state of going into bhavanka very clearly. ครับอาจารย์ครับ
ส่วนของอินเดียก็แปลเสร็จแล้วนะครับ
Have you got your translation finished? โอเคครับแปลเสร็จแล้วครับ
ครับขอ อบพระคุณในทุกๆคำถามนะครับแล้วก็จะขออภัยที่ยังเคลียร์คำถามเดิมไม่หมดก็จะขอยกยอดเป็นวันพรุ่งนี้แล้วก็กลับขออภัยในกินเวลาครูบาอาจารย์ไป12 นาทีครับผม